Hi friends, it's Andriy Vasilenko, and today it's another episode If Metallica Hard Me, and I continue to mess up Metallica bass part. We hit on Cliff's era, with Ryan and Jason's era, with Load, and now it's your turn, Rob. Death Magnetic, the album that came out the time I discovered Metallica, and it was sick. Not without flaws, but to me Death Magnetic is a classic of Metallica. Or rather, an album that came the closest to becoming like the stuff from the 80s. Had they done a few things differently there, let alone the sound. Even though Metallica are so freaking big, they are not a little good with consistency of the album sound and making the bass actually perceivable there. But I'm gonna talk only about the arrangement side, and Robert Trujillo did an amazing job as a bassist and as a composer on Death Magnetic. If you are learning how to make bass parts, that's the textbook for you. Sometimes he followed the guitar, sometimes the drums, sometimes he did something on his own. Another thing that made his contribution to Metallica bass stand out is that he recorded it with 5-string bass. Cliff 4-string. Jason has different basses, but in general, those parts can be played on the 4-string motherfucker, no problem. Unless you have less frets than Cliff did. And yeah, that was a challenge when I recorded Orion. Cliff had 24 frets, I got 22, and that caused some problems. I had to be resourceful how to play the solo. And that's the whole point of this series. I had this bass, owned it for more than 10 years. This was my first real working bass. 4 strings, 22 frets, pretty thick strings. And if Metallica hard me, I would stick to. Rob has at his disposal 5 notes lower than E. Most Metallica songs are in E, sometimes in A, but occasionally they do stuff in B. And that's when 5-string bass comes most handy. For example, in Suicide and Redemption, the instrumental that Metallica did for the first time in 20 years. And that's a masterpiece. Even though some websites say it's shit, to me Suicide and Redemption is a worthy successor of To Live to Die, Orion and Cthulhu. And it's not the same. Each Metallica instrumental has some different structure, different feeling. But what I could agree why Suicide Redemption is a bit more could have been better is that it's too long. They stretched it to 10 minutes just for the sake of it, and some riffs just seem too... But still, in comparison to the old Metallica instrumentals, especially Run and Cthulhu, and to lesser extent To Live to Die, it is a bit more restrained. They could have done a bit more exciting parts for basses in particular. But well, we're comparing songs that were recorded with Cliff Burton, who was about 20 years old, to Rob Trujillo, who was in his 40s. There's different kind of energy, maturity and stuff, and what Cliff Burton allowed himself to do in the songs. What's fitting that time, that age, that band, those songs, and just fuck, that's Cliff Burton. He really pushed the boundaries of what bass can do. But still, he knew the boundaries of himself. He knew how to hold his horses. If he wanted, he'd play anesthesia-like parts in every song. But well, he was a musician, composer, and he knew how to start the composition and be in team. That's what I'm trying to do today. I made the part a bit more complex, threw some fills here and there, I changed some parts pretty drastically. For several reasons. First of all, it's 4-string bass, and Suicide Redemption needs 5-string bass. Some parts, especially the intro, they need 5-string bass. Just otherwise, it does not sound right. Close enough, but not right. The riff, oh my god. It has some funk into it. He uses the low beat note, and the beginning part of the riff, it's like recharging the gun. It always frustrated me that I could not play it on my instrument, but I did my best. Then it has the verse riff. And the whole first part of the song resembles To Lose to Die, where they just play riffs, not really changing them up until interlude, and it may seem boring to some extent, but that was the mood of To Lose to Die. But the first part, yeah, it's pretty repetitive, it could have been more there, and the bass could provide that. Robert did not do anything outstanding there, he followed the guitars using his low strings. And I was forced to come up with a bass riff, with a brand new bass riff there, on the high B note, but sounding low enough to be functioning as bass. The section repeats 3 times, and I played a bit differently each time, developing it, and then it was something that some really cool reference that just appeared naturally. And then of course the middle section. Which stands well, even in comparison to Lose to Die. And what Rob did there was really simple. And then he turned to Gallop when it was building up. And I pretty much took that approach too, because that's awesome. But what I did, I threw some To Lose to Die-ish and Orion-ish feels. Just a pinch of it. That sounds cool, but I heard it before. Sometimes I played simpler than I could have, but that's just to deserve to play more complex later on, you know? Some parts I did not change at all, the breakdown. There has to be dead straight with the guitar and drums. But when it repeats in the outro, it's transposed from to. Rob can do it lower. I just played the chord. To have this fat final point. The song really deserved it to be a full breakdown at the end. There's a lot of riffs there. And yeah, almost forgot the most important change that I made. Inspired by Cthulhu, but it has a similar drop section at the end, where Cliff did some cool stuff like Cthulhu. So I hope maybe this part brings some youth to it, the 80s vibe. I'm in my 20s, I want to show off. This is my second collaboration with Ben Timmerman. Another one is coming this August, and hopefully September, and even October. Man, we got like 2 anniversaries, and yeah. Robert, you were my first bass teacher. And I hope you stay in Metallica, because I would fuck it up.